This is a walkthrough of the classic to current migration process. This is for Website Pipeline or SimCloud Classic customers that were on a platform deployed typically before 2018 that are migrating to the latest version of the SimCloud platform. There's other content on why the benefits of migration and why you would want to migrate. I'm going to talk through the current process that we're using to walk customers through migration and set some expectations for you, or try to align expectations. So the overview here is this article is covering three parts: a process overview, some key things to expect, and then the process details. So as you go through this article, I'm going to try to hit the highlights here on this video. The key thing to understand is we have 5 stages that you go through. These are basically the process stages, and there's steps within each stage, and then there's action items or tasks within each step that you will take as you go through the migration process. Some of the steps or actions are taken by SimCloud. This is part of what we do with our migration offering. We do standard deployment that we have included for customers that are doing our standard connector. And we also provide implementation support. Largely, this is a self-service implementation project that your project team will be responsible for planning and executing. And we'll talk about some key roles here and the things to expect. There is a preparation stage. What we found through best practices is there is work that has typically, we have seen in the past, people wait till stage 2 to do the work that's in the preparation stage, and it drags out the process, the migration project, and it particularly drags out this period of time. What you're seeing down below is what we call the content management time periods, which is before deployment, what we call an overlap period where you have dual content management responsibilities, and then after go live where you go back to single platform content management. That's because in the time periods here, I'm going to open a new tab. As you go through the process here, these time periods, this is a sequence of diagrams that shows you what happens. Basically, your existing classic platform has your customer site or sites, your web drivers, your workers, and customers are using this. Workers are typically employees. There's a database, an ERP sync API, and then the sync tools moving data with your system. The new platform does not exist yet. When we go through a migration, we actually deploy a new platform. There's an optional preview deployment step. You can talk to our pro services group. If you have a lot of customizations migrated, you may want to elect to do that. There is additional cost associated with that because there's extra steps in the deployment, but it may be beneficial if you decide you want to do it. The period 2, the overlap period, we basically deploy the new platform. We copy all your images and files over, all your product images and things like that. We copy your data over. There's a few exceptions, but the gigantic majority of the data we copy over and map it directly into the new platform's database. They're largely built on the same data structure. The SimCloud platform was basically an evolution of the old Website Pipeline or SimCloud platforms, which is why all that works. And then the ERP sync is not installed. At that point, your dual management of content starts. So your workers are basically going to be managing, and there's a number of reasons why that I won't get into here, but your workers are going to be managing stuff like product data or anything in settings. Well, I will mention a few reasons why. But they're going to be dual managing the content. And our assumption is dual management is going on because we have found customers that make deliberate decisions on changing settings or content, and or they're already doing uploads or whatever on the content that they're managing, things like product data, supplemental product data, things like that. So that dual management starts the instance that we do the data and file copy. Your dual management responsibilities start. This is in the stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 of the project. I'm going to go back to those stages in a second. Then we hook up the sync tool, which is also managing content. Anything that's synced from the ERP will continue to sync, and it'll sync into both platforms. And you will continue the dual management of content when you prepare for go live. There's a small data copy that we do. This is not all the contents or settings. It's really what we call customer wallet style data. So the wallet style data is things like saved credit cards, favorites list, stuff like this, stuff that your customers enter that your workers would not know to be able to grab or capture that is specific to the customer's experience. So that wallet style data we copy over right before go live. You will then go through your go live process. We will turn off your classic platform and sync tool, but leave it up for reference. Your customers and workers will be accessing the platform here, and we'll do data copy. There's a typo there that should say workers. There's a data copy number 3, which is a quick refresh of the wallet style data that was entered since data copy 2 for your customers. That gets you completely up. And then a month after go live, we're going to take down the entire platform. So you are in a mode where you're running dual platforms for a period of time. So going back to this process, our recommendation is you stack the deck on the preparation stage before you start this overlap period to make this overlap period as short of a time as you can calendar-wise to make that process as painless as possible as you're going through it. It's still a project. There's still some pain associated with going through this. We believe the benefits are strongly in your favor of getting to the new platform. But it's just work to be aware of as your team is planning the work. So again, the whole deal we've stacked the deck on this process is get the stuff done in preparation. And I'll talk through this concept of extra work or introduce that concept here in a minute. So you can move through stage 1, 2, and 3 as expeditiously as possible and ultimately get into the new platform after go live. A couple key things to expect. So just circling the wagons here. I'm going to come back to part 2. Part 3, the process details. This goes through a lot more details on the individual steps. So you can see here that we've kind of turned this chart from horizontal to vertical, and the diagrams walk through stage 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you can see your content management time periods on the left, and the period before deployments in blue. And this goes through steps and specific tasks and details. There's reference articles in here as you need, but your lead implementer and project manager are going to need to be very familiar with this process and the associated steps, because they're going to be the ones planning and driving through this process to get through your overall project. The steps in yellow are the dual management or this overlap period that we're talking about. So that's introduced in stage 1. At step 2, when we do deployment part 1, which I went through in the diagrams before, that's when you start the dual management period. There's some additional things like self-service onboarding that can happen for the implementers. And as we do deployment part 2, which is the ERP sync tool install. If you have a standard connector, the SimCloud software side handles that. If you have a third-party connector, our SimPro Services group or a third party would handle that connector. And there's more details in the articles here on that. So this walks you through all the different stages and steps and gets down to a task level on the specific tasks and things that you should go through on it. It also identifies the work that SimCloud's going to do within here, so your project team can be aware of the portions of this where SimCloud has action items. And then we talk about live rollout here. There's an optional soft launch you can go through if you have a high volume, highly customized platform or a really high volume or business critical platform. We recommend the soft rollout, the soft launch rollout to mitigate risks associated with the live cutover that would occur on any platform change that you're making. And then this kind of walks through the live cutover steps, and then ultimately you're shut down to complete the project. So lots of details in here. I'm not going through all that. I am going to come back and touch on a few key things to expect. There's a separate article here that goes through the details of this that I'll open up right now. Just to help you with overall awareness on this. The process we've talked through, content management time periods we talked through. One key thing here, we've been making lots of R&D efforts in SimCloud over the past several years to get a clean operating software as a service business separate from our cleanly operating professional services practice. The SaaS side of the business, our entire mantra is self-service, allowing you to self-service for everything. We're doing that to pull the required pro services pricing out. So you can basically choose to do it yourself work with third-party partners, or where our pro services group has an offering, you can choose to buy services from them. But our goal is to make it where you're not required to do that. We've got several waves that we're working through right now on opening up self-service capabilities. The first is on overall project implementation projects like this. The project management, project coordination, lead implementer work is all on you. So our assumption with what we're doing is that you are filling those spots with capable people that can do the appropriate work. And there's articles in here that help you understand what those roles are, and to have a successful project, what characteristics or what responsibilities those people need to take on. So one key thing to understand, if your original classic project, there was probably a required heavier upfront fee and pro services engagement that we had, and we brought a lot of labor to those projects and basically did guided or managed projects to manage things through. That is completely changed. That is not the baseline assumption on when we do new logos or bring new customers on, or in migration deals. Everything is based on a self-service assumption. That's to give you more choices on what you can do. Do it in-house, take on third-party partners, like I said, or where there's applicable services, our pro services group, we're happy to help with that. So just keep that in mind. That's a material shift from what you probably went through if you were the ones that went through the original classic implementation. That is a shift in assumption, and it's a key thing to understand. Responsibility shift on project management, lead implementer work, and planning the actual action items and driving the schedule and scope. There is ways to get help. You can read here. A couple musts, particularly if you've already started the migration project or wherever you're at in the process. 4 things that you really need to make sure you don't skip. One is you've got to have a project manager, and they should complete their onboarding checklist. There's an onboarding checklist for project managers. They need to be able to do the job. That's the person that's going to plan the tasks, make sure they coordinate the people, they understand what the finish line is, and they have a plan that they're driving towards to get to the finish line. So they're in charge of on scope, on budget, on time. The lead implementer operator, this is the person that's in there spinning all the dials and tweaking stuff. So they're going to be in the workspaces, making sure the content is there and all the data is there, the settings are there. They're running through testing and circuit testing with the SimCloud application and moving data back and forth with the ERP system and making sure all that stuff works as the lead implementer operator. And then you got to make sure that person has the capacity and skills to complete the work that they're going through. A lot of it in the migration project, unless you're making material changes, which is in the extra work section, is really around testing and punch listing and doing some tweaking and some extra things that come with the platform changes. These articles, I won't go through the details of this, but there are platform changes that occurred. That's to the benefit. There's lots of additional things that we've provided or brought to the table with the latest version. There's other things that are differences that you just need to be aware of. We think they're better, but they will impact your work or data management. So that's in this article. And sorry about these, but there are a few takeaways that occurred. There were some underlying reasons why we did it, and we're working to get those back. But it's important you understand, or your team understands the takeaways. There's shouldn't be a lot of those, just a handful of those that we're aware of. We've listed them there. The content management, that set of diagrams is really the best article to go through to see what your responsibilities are. But there's an extra article here that gets into more details on content data management and how that works. And it talks through what you manage versus what's copied versus what's synced over. So that's helpful. Extra work. This is a concept that we've introduced here on migration projects. As we've witnessed a number of these migration projects that we've already taken on and successfully gone live with, or ones that have had some issues, we realized that these 6 categories of extra work are most routinely misunderstood. Your goals, some of the extra work is necessary, but as a general rule, defer as much or all the extra work to a future phase and get the migration done first if you can. There is going to be some critical stuff, maybe customizations that you need to move over, or if you have a third-party ERP connector that you're going to do. But things like new custom mods, new feature implementation, data and content re-engineering, To the degree that it's practical at all, we recommend you defer that to a future phase and get through the migration project in that dual content management period as quickly as you can. If you're doing the extra work, front load it to stage 0. And in the process, we talk about that a lot. We also have some stuff just on things that impact lead times that you can do to set internal expectation or scheduling of what we've typically seen on lead times. Going back here to stage 0, this walks you through the steps of stage 0. These are onboarding things, assembling the team, reserving your spot with us to get in line. We have a set of waves that we're going through for scheduling. We've had a tremendously positive response on migrations. So we are managing through a backlog of migrations. We put additional resources on that. But there are waves of start dates of when that start date occurs. Right here. But again, the step 0 stuff you can get started with right away. You complete the onboarding checklist for program and project manager, and then deciding on the extra work. There's a whole article on the extra work and explaining that, and then working with, if you have extra work with our pro services practice, working with them and considering a preview site that you can get deployed if you want to preview the extra work, or there's things they can do to make sure if you're migrating customizations, for example, they're ready for the new platform. So when you start stage 1, you're ready to roll and rip right through. And there's steps in here where that extra work can be tied in as you're going through this. This in the implementation stages as we go through it. So if you have any questions on this, we're happy to answer, but this gives you a pretty good overview of the different multiple articles that we've tied in, and really just trying to set a better expectation for all to avoid surprises and help you have a successful migration project. If there's things we could be doing to help, let us know.